Fleur, you're based in Queenstown, which really is, I guess, become the epicenter of this crisis from a business perspective, unfortunately for all the wrong reasons. Give us some sense about the way you're having to adapt your leadership style to deal with this new circumstance.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, look, we really feel that we're sort of in the eye of the storm here. Not only are we in hospo, but in the epicenter of tourism, which seems to, I think, we got front-faced with it probably before everybody else. The difficult part that I've had is my crystal ball hasn't been working. And as an entrepreneur, I really rely on that crystal ball to be something that gets me through the next 6 months, 5 years, whatever it is, and it sort of just stops spinning. So I think, 40 years in hospo and running small businesses prepares you a little bit for crisis. But for me, it was really about, I had to learn to change the way that I communicated. I had to have more communication with my staff that wasn't, front facing. And, like all of us, we're using Zoom and all of these things. But I think we really stepped up the communication. And we needed it to be, I really needed it to be genuine. One of our key pillars is genuine, generous, genuine, adventurous and skillful. So we really wanted things to be honest and upfront. And we've really tried to be very open with all the staff because we are in a serious crisis. And, today we're letting go probably 70% of our workforce, which is, hugely impacting me personally. But look, we then, I then moved towards that adventurous piece for us. And we have to be really adventurous in our thinking about how we can reimagine what we're doing. And what is that future going to look like? We talked a little bit prior to, this about how tourism has such a great opportunity, and New Zealand as a whole, with tourism being a big part of our GDP, to really reimagine what it looks like. And I'm very excited to be a part of that. And I know a lot of the people that work with me are very excited to be able to participate in that as well and see what change that we can bring about. One of the other key things was really about keeping yourself well and balanced, and trying not to be too emotional. And because when a crisis happens, it can hit you from all different angles. I think a little bit of gin works quite well, as does the lots of exercise. Feel privileged to be here where we can get out any time of the day. Bike, walk, run, whatever we want to do, it's here and available. But I think that's really key. The other things are just really about, we see it in three parts. We've just got to survive. And that survival mode is using skills, negotiations. We're negotiating with landlords. What is the outcome that you want? And we're sort of bumbling along in that respect, because we don't really have a clear path yet.
Just give a little insight perhaps around your mindset at the moment. You mentioned before about how this had sort of thrown you off balance, obviously, because you rely on that, instinctive nature as an entrepreneur. And I think of all of the sectors in business, the toughest at the moment, obviously, is SME, because, you don't have those, major credit lines and everything else that bigger companies can rely on at this time. Just give us a sense of where your mindset is at the moment.
Yes, so, again, it just reverts back to, we're really in that survival mode. How can we survive? How can we pay our creditors? How can we pay our staff and our landlords? And when are we going to open? And what does it look like when we do open? And I think that is the toughest question for small businesses, whether it's retail, hospitality, various other industries, is when we reopen, what does it look like? Who's coming to us? How are we going to, in level 2, are we having to wear masks and the staff social distance from the customer? Well, it's not hospitality, is it? And it's certainly not generous. And those sorts of things are really, throwing roadblocks in front of us. I think, you know, the easier picture is to look 12 months ahead and what that looks like further into the future, and that looks very optimistic and very positive. But this next 6 months, 8 months is a very
it's a real challenge.
to be in. Yeah, huge challenge.
Rick, give us your perspective, because obviously you're a larger business, but you've moved into more sector leadership in your current role as well too. Tell us about some of the various aspects of your leadership perspective that you're having to deal with at the moment.
Well, Naylor Love's possibly a little different. We're a large company with small company values. I'm a CEO essentially without a desk. My home's in Nelson. I do have a desk in Christchurch, but we have operations in 8 regions around the country. And one of the things I do as a leader is I get out there and I get on the jobs and go around our offices on a regular basis. And I'm trying to get to each region at least once a month, talk to staff, talk to the people on the site. And of our 750 odd people, I would know 400 to 500 of them by name. And the ones that I don't know by name are ones that are relatively new to the company I haven't had a chance to meet yet. So that's a very important part of Naylor Love, is those family values and the connection relationship with our people and our teams. So the biggest difficulty for me has been maintaining that communication, that personal level of empathy with our people through the crisis, particularly being locked up at home. So I've had to change my communication from verbal and being in front of people to written communication with emails. And we've run at least 2 newsletters, just single page A4 newsletters a week, 2 of each week, telling people what's going on, because they're worried about their jobs, they're worried about the future, they're worried about the COVID, and we are trying to keep them up to speed, keep them as much news on where the company's at, what we're doing about supporting them as far as their wage packet, etc. goes. And the good thing is about that, and if you talk about Mojo, is that we've had very positive feedback because of these continuing communications. Even the guys that work on the tools who don't have a Naylor Love email, we have organised apps which sends them a text which tells them if they go and check their home email, there's an email from Rick there. And so we've managed to communicate with everybody on the company. And the feedback we've had has been exceptional. It's been that I had one email a couple of weeks ago from one of our people saying his wife works for a large national company, and they've had one in the 4 weeks of shutdown, or up until that point, that had one email from the CEO, and it sets up just a good luck sort of thing, whereas they'd had probably at least 10 or 12 from us by me at that stage, explaining what was going on and keeping them informed. So people felt very informed, and our level of engagement, which is a very important thing for us, we've got very high levels of engagement, which we've maintained. We measure, and we've managed to maintain through the crisis. My biggest concern is not short-term. Construction is as you can imagine, our contracts sort of go for 6-12 months or more. So the immediate situation is projects that might stop, but that's unlikely. We've got one in Auckland, which is a hotel. As you can imagine, the client for that particular project hasn't got any people to put in it when it's open. So they're just closing it up to water tightness. No fit out will happen, and they're short curtailing the contract. We may see 1 or 2 others like that happening. My biggest concern is the medium term. That's where we're going to be in 6 to 12 months. Just like retail, the hospitality, our business is very much cash flow. We're very high volume, very low margin operations. So the turn off of the revenues over the last 4 weeks has been very, very hard on us. We've managed to pay our people fully through that period, but if it had gone on a lot longer, it could have been very, very difficult. So now we've got to make the decision as what's going to happen. As Fleur was saying, where we're going in the medium term. I suspect, and I've had the benefit of living through the 87 stock market crash, and I knew what happened as a result of that. And the 6 to 12 months after that, we saw a lot of downturn in the construction industry. The pipeline turned off, and I have a worry that that is going to happen. So my role now is one, I can't change too much within Naylor Love other than communicating with the teams. And so now if I want to do the best for our people,